Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Afternoon, I can hear.
Oh, okay, thank you. Please kindly pardon me for today. I'm not feeling my best, so I'll be off camera for the introduction. It will be really appreciated if the speakers will turn on their cameras to keep the energy in the room warm and engaging. Oh, thank you very much. Okay.
I realize my camera's not working. Let me just see what the issue is. Apologies.
It's okay. Please pardon me. I'm not feeling my best today, so my camera will be a bit off. Thank you. Can we have AS Unisa, please? I think your camera is off.
My camera is playing up. I'm just seeing if I can sort that out.
All
Bear with
right,
me a
thank
second.
you.
Apologies.
That's all right. Okay. Good evening, wherever you're joining us from, distinguished speakers and esteemed guests. Welcome to another edition of Africa Real Estate and Business Insight. My name is Halima Aliyu. I'm the project coordinator, and I'll be opening today's session before handing over to our hosts. I'll quickly like to talk about RB, which is African Real Estate and Business Insight. We are committed to advancing real estate across Africa and promoting sustainable, inclusive development that supports long-term economic and social growth across the continent. Today's seminar, we're looking at from hype to value, how digital technology is reshaping African real estate. We are exploring how innovation and digital transformation are moving the industry beyond conversation. We're looking into impact, changing how we build, invest, grow real estate value across Africa. This session will run for 1 hour and 15 minutes, which will be followed by a question and answer segment at the end. Please, I'll advise our audience to place in their questions on the chat box if you have any for the speakers. And please, if you can also kindly introduce yourself on the chat box too, from wherever you're joining us from, I will really appreciate that. And I would like to hand over to our host who will guide us through the rest of the program and introduce our speakers to us. Thank you very much, and over to you, AS Unisa.
Okay, thank you very much. Evening greeting from Nigeria here. So every other person, good morning and good evening from where you are joining us from. I am AS Yunusa and I am the host of African Real Estate and Business Insight. For 2025, we have discussed about social infrastructure somewhere around January. We talk about capital structuring in February, and in March, we talked about climate risk. Today, we want to turn our attention to something that is very, very important and vital to our industry: digital transformation. Anywhere you look around now in the world, you heard about AI, you heard about pro tech. Whether you like it or not, the conversation is getting to us, even if we are trying to move away from it. So we dedicate this month edition to actually look at that. So from blockchain, land registry, and AI-driven valuations to PropTech to virtual property tour, the promises are loud, I must say. I believe I have experts today that will throw more insight about this. Also, even in terms of disposing real estate products like marketing, digital technology is transforming everything. So today we want the conversation to move away from the hype and let's talk about value. The value in the sense that what is actually working, what did we need to reshape, or where do we need to apply this tool in terms of transaction, in terms of management. We just want to look at it then and see how it can create a seamless experience for even investors and players alike. And today, I have wonderful speakers. I can see some of them because I already recognize them from their pictures. I have Mr. Singodo. Sorry, sir, did I pronounce your name well? From Johannesburg, South Africa.
Yes,
Hope I pronounced your name well.
I've
Yeah,
Sean
thank you.
Godoy, yes. No, very good to be here.
Thank you very much. We have him joining us from South Africa. As I earlier said, he is the co-founder of the PropTech Africa Association, and he's also a lecturer in property and technology at the University of Cape Town. And he is the founder of Diversity Property Solutions. Very rich CV. He has worked across Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and other African countries. Wow. And he is one of the leading voice in digital innovation in real estate. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Sin. Then secondly, joining us from Dubai, we have Mr. Kelvin. Mr. Kelvin, your surname is very long for me to pronounce, so apologies for not pronouncing it.
No, that's okay. I would love to hear the Nigerian twist to my surname, so please feel free.
Tirovenga. Do I get it?
90%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
Tiruvengadam.
Tirovengadam. Okay, thank you very much. Joining us from Dubai is the board director, CEO, and a strategic deal maker with over 25 years of experience across African real estate, hospitality, financial services, telecom, and energy industry. Wow. Built environment packed in one. He brings a rare contribution of on-ground deal execution and high-level strategic thinking to our today's conversation. And also, I have Miss Anna Agiekum. Miss Anna, do I pronounce your name rightly? Let me hear from you too. You are muted in case you are trying to talk to me. Let me unmute you.
Can you hear me now? So sorry.
Yeah.
You've done a good job, Ajikun. You've done well.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you very much. Miss Anna, she's joining us from UK. She's the co-founder of On Point Property Management Limited and the driving force behind the UK and Ghana Property and Lifestyle Expo. That's a good job there. She works at the intersection of diaspora investment, property management, and cross-border real estate, giving her a front row view of what digital transformation looks like in practice for investors that are interested in navigating our African market. So as you can see, today's conversations, we have three different people from different African regions coming with different perspective and driving us towards one conversation. So to our esteemed viewers, I enjoin you as usual. Stay behind with your popcorn. I don't know if whether you join us live here or you are watching from our social media handle. Grab your popcorn, listen, and let us learn. The purpose of these conversations every month, as we usually emphasize, is for we to build trust because the industry has this common problem of trust. We build trust across borders to promote transparency and also connect ourselves, people that are shaping housing and real estate generally across African countries. So let's listen, learn, and improve whatever we are doing. So we are going to move into the session proper, and I'm going to start from my good friend, Mr. Sin. Mr. Sin, confirm you are ready for us so that we can move straight into the conversation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. So from your career, you are someone who is into research across sub-Saharan African countries, and also you teach same at university. So when you look at, or you honestly look at the current state of digital adoption in African real estate and housing industry generally, when you look at it, what do you think is really working on the ground versus what is just theoretical?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question, because when you talk about digital evolution or digital change in real estate, there's often a lot of the sort of exciting or sexy topics that get all the airtime. Things like, I know you mentioned blockchain, indeed registries, things like this. Obviously, AI is a big topic at the moment, and AI definitely has a place in a variety of different applications within real estate. But it comes down to where the biggest problems are, and what needs the most, what's the most pressing to have a solution. So a big area for me where we see activity is the rental housing market. So there's a wide range of quite successful prop tech companies that are servicing the rental housing market and bringing useful services to solve problems. And basically, at the end of the day, they're helping with access to housing. So one of those challenges is rental, the formats of rental, of having annual rentals in, or having rental paid upfront in annual terms. So this can be solved by having a microfinance solution where basically the landlord is settled, rental is settled a year or more, sometimes more than a year in advance, and then the tenant is able to pay that back monthly, which in turn makes it sort of a standard rental monthly arrangement, obviously with paying a fee. So we're seeing those microfinance products come into play that are really important. Another area is simply bringing transparency to the industry in terms of listing platforms. So having trustworthy, vetted listing platforms. So there's platforms like Spleets in Nigeria that have solved this problem and make sure that their listings are accurate and are legitimate. Because at the end of the day, the rental industry, there's a lot of room for fraud and scams and these types of things. So we've seen a lot of progress happen in rental platforms, and Spleet does offer a lot of other products as well in terms of helping renters. So in terms of access to rental housing, I think we've seen some quite exciting steps and some sustainable prop techs coming through in terms of sustainable businesses. They've actually built solid businesses, and they've achieved funding, and they've achieved foreign investment often with these companies. Also linked to that, obviously, in terms of access to housing is home ownership. So this one is a bit more difficult to crack. It needs a sort of a play of microfinance to help that come together. But it's a harder egg to crack in terms of giving people actually access to home ownership. So there's examples of very good companies like Rent Score in Kenya. They offer a rent to own model, working with financial institutions where your rental payments can become equity. So they do have a system there where they've worked out microfinance products that can help you achieve home ownership. Even more interestingly, another product linked to them is they actually use, and this is something we're seeing in some other markets, they can use your rental payments to build a credit score. Because in a lot of countries in Africa, including South Africa, there's certain segments of the housing market they don't have access to a clear credit record. So they actually convert your rental payments into a credit history, which can then unlock financial instruments and can increase this access to housing, like we've said, even if that's rental housing, because obviously you need a credit history and credit checks, etc., to access rental housing in most markets. So these are quite interesting. Housing is big, and I think it's a topic you have to mention when you're talking anything to do with real estate in Africa. We do have sort of a variety of other interesting areas, such as smart buildings and property management, facilities management, linked products. So there's some very interesting products happening in that space. That's a lot of the times next to housing and rentals is the sort of engine room of prop tech, because it's the engine room of digital and real estate, because it's a very task intensive process in terms of managing properties and managing facilities. There's a lot of tasks, there's a lot of pain points, a lot of bottlenecks, etc. So we do see some good products coming in that sense. Touching on, I think it is one that's very interesting, is blockchain. Like touching on that, and particularly having blockchain deed registries, there is some very good work happening where we have private companies offering this type of technology to demonstrate secure tenure for new developments. So the technology is there, it's been laid out, but to put it into practice in a government deed registry, there's a lot of obviously challenges to that. So that one is still, it's more in theory that we're going to have properties transferring on the blockchain. Ideally, we'd be in some space where that'll happen in a not too distant future, because we have a lot of challenges with security of tenure and also data clarity and transparency of data in our deed registries. But that is one that's a little way off in terms of what we're seeing in technology and in property. And then in terms of AI, that's something it's obviously just that's important to touch on as well. AI is not sort of a technology on its own. It's part of basically everything we do. It's already, even before, the dawn of ChatGPT, etc., and before it got really big airtime, and now we have obviously numerous players in the field. Before that, there was AI active in a lot of products within the sort of wider technology landscape, and that includes within property and prop tech. But just to say, obviously, we are seeing our local prop techs make use of AI. And it seems like they are turned to obviously harness the benefits. And I think it's just another tool that you have to use these days. It's not something that's a nice to have. It gets the job done. So AI will have to be used in some way. Like I said, it's not an option, but we are seeing good usage of that in some of the prop techs that we see on the continent. So yeah, maybe I'll stop there. I'm not sure. I don't want to go on for too long, but I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sean. You have spoken a lot, so you spoke like an expert that operates at the intersection, as earlier introduced. My takeaway from what you said, the practical things that is being applied digitally now, we talk about blockchain registries, smart building, and property management. You also talk about how it has enhanced transparency in terms of property listings, and also reduction in scam, access to rental services, and more. So thank you very much for giving us that insights. So let me move to Miss Anna. Miss Anna, kindly confirm you can still hear me before I take your question, please.
Absolutely. I can see you and hear you so clearly. Good
Oh,
afternoon to you.
okay. You sit at the intersection of the UK market and Ghana.
Yes.
Meaning you serve both diaspora investors who are trying to navigate African market from abroad. So how much has digital technology actually improved that experience for you? And where do biggest trust and transparency gap exist? Because Mr. Sean talked about transparency. So where do you think the biggest trust and transparency gaps really exist?
Yeah, I mean, that is really the most crucial point in this conversation. The trust is not lack of interest. I've been selling to the diaspora for the past 11 years, and year on year, the interest is just growing phenomenally. People want to invest in Africa, but the biggest issue is trust, transparency, due diligence, and ease of transaction. Even though technology is there, it doesn't eliminate the trust issue. So the human aspect of all of this is very much still needed, especially for the continent. But I'm going to talk about in my practical business and how technology has certainly been an advantage point. So as you know, I'm based in the UK. I sell a lot of property in Ghana, as well as done a few transactions in South Africa and also in Nairobi. But most of my business has been from the diaspora buying in Ghana and also high net worth individuals buying in London. Now, what has helped me from the offset is technology. We've been using it for virtual viewing tools, even remote buying, digital documentation. As you know, I'll start with the virtual viewings. People want to see what they're buying. They want to have a feel for the country. And outside of our individual professional selves, you've got the internet, you've got Instagram, you've got YouTube. And these are all digital platforms that have been adding value to what we are doing. When I focus on our clients, especially the virtual tools, when I'm in Ghana or when I'm in the UK, they're able to join exactly how we are on a Zoom and see a property that they could potentially buy. As you know, cross-border coordination with signing documentations and having documentation sent to clients. These are all existing technologies that we use via our emails, etc. Another interesting aspect, what has happened is the marketing. The marketing reach is now global. You can post an ad on any of the digital platforms or social media platforms, and you will see the amount of developers, the amount of properties people can see literally from their mobile phones. So the visibility has definitely improved, and this has helped with the flow of information, because that's also been a really, really big issue of people getting the correct information from property professionals, not just people online talking or influencers in the new world we're in today. There's still room for improvement, especially with the technology. And this is where it stands out, you know, especially if I talk about Ghana, verification of ownership. Again, we have something called a lands commission, especially when you're buying lands and want to know who owns. It's still not digitalized. I think there's so much more, especially like in Ghana and most of African countries, where they can really use the technology that's here today to make it very transparent so people can really see what is the truth. And I think if we can really, really deal with the trust issues, I think is a perfect combination with professionals using technologies to streamline their processes and also let people know what is available on the continent. So technology brings opportunity, but execution is still required by trusted professionals. And I think it's a really exciting time for Africa. It's got one of the most interesting real estate. As I go from different countries, I can see the same things happening. The cities are developing very fast. There's a growing interest, not only from the diaspora. There's a growing middle class on the continent. So, you know, the future is not just digital, it's trusted, it's structured. And I think globally, you know, it's African real estate. So when we're talking about the hype, which really draw my attention to the name of today's conversation, we have to move away from hype and really focus on value. And only then we can combine sort of technology, structure, and real expertise. And that's what I'm constantly always trying to reinforce only with our clients, and especially when we do in-person events. I don't know if I can still keep going, but I think those are my main key points to get around.
Thank you very much, Miss Anna. You spoke a lot of things that resonated with me, and my book is full here. Oh, your closing actually caught me. You said we have to move away from hype and focus on the value by harmonizing technology, structure, and expertise. That
Yeah.
is that is incredible. So thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. Before I come back to you. Now, my friend Mr. Kevin, I saw your notification in the group, so I will face you. You are going to take two questions now. So the first one will come now. After that, I'll take you again, should in case you dropped as you notify me. But rest assured, we have three questions to just take today so that we can learn and explore this conversation deeply. So, Mr. Kevin, with your 25 years in deal making across real estate, hospitality, financial services, and energy in Africa. So, from your perspective, as someone who has closed complex transactions in multiple markets, as I earlier mentioned, how much does digital infrastructure actually influence where capital goes on this continent? How much do you think it actually influences it? Thank you.
Absolutely. Afternoon, everybody. And I think great introduction by obviously Anna and Sean. I think they've pretty much both said a lot of what I would like to talk about. But so I think I would like to look at it from a perspective of a journey, because, you know, when you look at things today, it's very difficult to understand the impact of technology and how things are being changed and how we're actually moving from hype to value. I do believe we're actually moving from hype to value. Obviously, as Anna rightly said, we need to focus more on the value going forward. And I see technology helping in doing that very much so. So let me give you a couple of examples for obviously those who are on the call as well. As you've said, I mean, I've been working on the continent for more than 25 years. When I started my career was late 1990s. Back then, I didn't start in real estate, by the way. I started into corporate finance and investment banking. Very often, interestingly enough, for those who are in Nigeria at the time, we were doing financing or debt raising or equity raising for hotel development or redevelopment, for example. For those who remember the Federal Palace, the big hotel in Lagos, and also the Sheraton, you know, at the time in the late 90s, for example, because we didn't have technology. I mean, we had a computer, we had Windows, but we didn't have Google Map, right? We didn't have data, right? So it took us a lot of time to understand, for example, a specific real estate asset, but also the opportunities and challenges in that specific asset class, for example, right? So if we were looking at financing a hotel, okay, it was very difficult, or it would take you a lot of time to understand how many hotels you have in the market, how many rooms, the quality of rooms, what kind of rates your competitors are charging, and eventually what is your positioning, right? So a lot of things back then was very much, to be honest, two things actually, I think, was very much entrepreneurial driven, people who took risk. And the second thing was around thumb sucking. What I mean by the thumb sucking, and I'll give you an example which I went through in the mid 2000, I think around 2005-6. If those who are in Nigeria remember, you know, I was part of Actis, so we developed the Palms, the shopping center in Lagos, and then also next door in Ghana, in Accra, we developed the first A-grade mall, which is Accra Mall, in 2006-7, right? So we didn't have the technology back then. So you can imagine, for example, as opposed to today you've got Google Earth. You can easily go on the site, check the area, understand, the positioning of the site, traffic flows, positioning in terms of density, residential around the site, etc., which we didn't have. So back then, if you imagine, without technology, we had to take a lot of time, number one, to understand what today might be seen as basic. Secondly, also, we had to spend a lot of time on the ground understanding, spending a lot of time talking to people, and very often it was anecdotal. So I remember, for example, with Accra Mall, before opening Accra Mall in 2007, I think it was 2007, 8, rental, how do you come up with the right rental? It was a matter of, it wasn't science driven, it wasn't data driven, but it was very much thumb sucking, trial and error, basically. So fast forward to today, and I think that's where I think it's important to understand that we are embarking on the technological support, which I'm very optimistic and very happy to see the game changer that's bringing. Today, I'll give you an example, okay? In 2 weeks' time, I need to go to a conference in Kenya, in Nairobi, which is the African Property Investment Conference. And I wanted to have some metric on residential pricing in specific suburbs in Nairobi, which I know of, for example. So through AI, for example, I was able to ask AI to do some search for me, and eventually was able to get very interesting data about the evolution of residential in that specific suburb of Nairobi, which is Westlands, price points, how many developments are coming to market, what sort of category of developments are coming to market, etc. So that for me is a huge advancement in my career, right? Because when I started, we never had this, and today we have it. So I think, which goes back to what Anna said and Sean as well said, is we need to be able to leverage on the technology to collect the data, because if we don't have data, we cannot make the right investment decision. We cannot have the right information, basically. And investors, any investors, whether it's a local investor, a regional, or an international investor, everybody needs information and data, because that's how you make a decision, right? So for me, it's about how do we leverage on technology to have access to data? And I think we've started that journey. And as Anna rightly mentioned, which I totally agree, is how do we focus going forward to ensure that whatever tool we're using, whether it's AI, whatever version 1.0, or Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is, whether these AI tools are able to go and retrieve the right data. Because by retrieving the data, and the more data we put out there, it will help us eventually to understand the markets better, right? Obviously, I do understand there are challenges in terms of sometimes in some markets, people fear sharing data because they fear by giving data, they're creating competition, which is a fair point, right? But also we have to be careful in terms of who we open the data to as well from an AI perspective, because, unfortunately, people also use technology to do a number of scams, for example, right? That's something which we need also to think about how we're going to integrate security when we open up technology to retrieve data and processing the data into information. Who's going to get access to the data, how sensitive these data are, and ensuring that there's a security framework around that, right? So I think on my side, I would say we've started that journey. I'm very confident. I'm going to say something, probably I'm going to be hit by some of you on the call. And I'll say it because I've got almost 30 years of career, actually 29 years. So you can estimate my age, right? And I sit on various boards of companies, of real estate companies, hotel companies, etc. What I'm finding is very often boards of companies typically have a different generation in terms of sitting on the boards, in terms of leadership. Very much 60-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, etc. And what I see is there's a disconnect between that group of people and the younger generation, because the younger generation are born into the technological world. They understand technology. It's part and parcel of their life, basically, day-to-day work. So my view is, how do we ensure that the younger generation is able to bring that energy of using technology, using AI, and ensuring that our traditional boards of companies in real estate in general is able to understand that we need to integrate technology. And I think there is a lag factor, because I see a lot of boards of companies, including the ones that I sit on, where I'm having challenges. I'm pushing and saying, guys, you cannot continue, guess estimating when AI can give you as near as I would say accurate data for you to make investment decision. So I'll stop here. I'll stop here for now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelvin. We cannot continue guess estimating when AI can give us an accurate data. And also, we should talk about how we can give the young generation an access to sit on the board in order to make everything seamless. You speak a lot, and also I love the fact that you are speaking and making reference to my country and also Ghana. Before I give you a second question, when you are speaking, I have someone important to this platform that joined us, Mr. Emmanuel Taiwa. He's from Ghana, and he's a board member of Gripper. So, Mr. Emmanuel, thank you very much for joining this section. Well, Miss Anna is from your country. You can later on you can connect with her. So thank you. So, Mr. Kevin, let me give you your second question again. You have spoken from wealth of experience, and also we understand the fact that you have moved around different regulatory environment across Africa, judging from your experience across different industries. So what can you say honestly that digital technology has genuinely accelerated in terms of deal structuring, or maybe reducing friction for you in the midst of complications? So where can you say that digital technology has made this structuring easier?
Totally. I'll give you a couple of examples, actually, interestingly, because obviously, my generation, like I said, you can guess estimate my age. So I come from the previous generation, embarking on technology and trying to leverage as much as possible the technology. I'll give you a couple of examples. A friend of mine who lives in South Africa, in Johannesburg, is looking to sell her house, basically. Typically, what happens when you sell your house in South Africa, you talk to one or two estate agents, and very often these estate agents would give you an estimation of valuation, right? Okay. So this friend of mine didn't know how much her house was valued, or what could it be valued, what's the valuation range. So she asked me, right? Now, I'm not a valuer. I don't have the data. But one night I went on using AI to really understand what's been happening in the property sector in Johannesburg, in Joburg, over the last couple of years, understanding her suburbs, understand how many units have been sold, and eventually also mapping out the valuation of houses or apartments being sold per square meter or square foot. And then eventually, by having a discussion with the AI tool, for example, it was interesting to see what we came up with, the valuation, right? Then the next day, we had a meeting with the two estate agents. And the estate agents were shell-shocked by the sheer amount of information that we had to present, right? So if you ask me what's good about this, because what's good about this is the owner has far more data and information to ensure that he or she is not being ripped off by the valuer or the estate agent, right? And I think we need to understand that, because what I see is technology is helping to democratize access of information and data, but then obviously it's what you're going to do with the data, right? So for me, it's about using that, right? So that's one example. A second example I'll give you I sit on, as I mentioned, I sit on boards of companies as independent non-exec directors. I sit on a board of a hotel group, which is very much into the beach resorts in Mauritius, but also in East Africa, in Zanzibar, Tanzania, etc. So I went as a board member. Very often as a non-exec board member, you digest what the management team is going to tell you, right? So I was able to use, again, AI to go and do some deep research about what's happening in the market, stress testing the group that I sit on, etc. So it was interesting. So I got additional information that helped me as a board member to make even better informed decisions or knowledge sharing at the board, so that basically then the board can strategically take better decision, right? So I can add additional number of experiences that I've gone through lately, and that's why I'm very optimistic. And I would say we should not be worried about or scared of, as long as we have the right legal framework. I believe it's going to be a game changer for us in terms of how we're going to use technology to get access to data and eventually make the right decision, whether it's buying, selling, renting as well. I'll give you a third example on another company that I sit on the board, where they were looking to acquire a property, right? So that property is a yielding property with multiple tenants. Okay, it's kind of a mixed-use development, office, retail, multiple tenants. Typically, when you do your due diligence, right, you will need a list of all the tenants, you'll need all the lease agreements, you will check the rentals, etc. That would take you probably 2 weeks. I mean, in my younger days, it used to take a month to put together, right? With AI, it took us less than a day. So the sheer amount of productivity that it brings to us, so something that would have taken 2 weeks is now taking a day, which basically means now I've got extra days to spend to either spend relationship building with stakeholders or actually doing other deals, for example. So I think from that angle, I can only see so many opportunities that it's creating. At least in my life, I can tell you from where I started back then and what I see today, how we're using it. It's bringing quite a lot of positive evolution in the whole value chain. And I think Sean mentioned that initially in his speech. It's not just one part of the value chain. I'm seeing it from identifying an asset, doing the due diligence, stress testing the lease agreements. Even you can get AI to even draft your legal agreement. Obviously, you need a lawyer to make sure that it's fine-tuned properly, etc. So I see it. It really helps to empower ourselves as stakeholders to do a lot of things, basically, in much quicker time and more efficient and more data-driven.
Mr. Kevin, thank you very much for calling. I'm not going to allow you to go. I will still come back to you after I engage with
That's
Mr.
okay.
Sean and Miss Anna. Before I come back to you, Mr. Sean, I also have another one of our past speaker who happens to now be a stakeholder in this platform, Mrs. Lusanda from South Africa. Ms. Lusanda, thank you very much for joining us again. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Sean, back to you.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome, ma. You co-founded the PropTech Africa Association, and you have worked across different African countries. So, in your experience, sir, what does a functional PropTech ecosystem actually require, and which African country can you confidently say that is getting it right? Mr. Sean, you are muted.
Sorry about that. That's a good question. Thank you. When you're looking at prop tech ecosystems and obviously what makes them tick and what makes them work well, we're fortunate that we have examples overseas of ecosystems that are a bit further down the road than us. So they've been operational a bit longer than some of our African PropTech ecosystems have. And there's basically the same ingredients you need for no matter where in the world you are, what real estate market you're dealing with, you need the same ingredients basically to for a PropTech ecosystem to work. And that applies also to any tech ecosystem, whether you're looking at fintech or health tech. You need a few players and a few ingredients. So I think for me, what the main things are is you need a supportive environment. So you need private sector coming together in different ways, and not for profits also coming into play to facilitate the sort of supportive environment, you could call it. So a big thing is that you need representation and you need someone to carry the narrative. So often a key ingredient is a PropTech association, like the one Kevin and myself founded, the PropTech Africa Association. So you have that where it's neutral territory, so it's not run by a specific corporate or a group of corporates. It's run by volunteers who have obviously their own interests in the industry, but it's run by a group of volunteers, and it should operate on a very transparent level and a very open sort of collaborative level. So you want to be open to working with private sector organizations or if it's NGOs, etc., and partnering on things, often like events, basically to drive the story and to drive growth. And it's also about introductions. It's a community. So you want a place where people can sort of come and ask questions and connect, and bring things together. So that's what we tried to do when especially in the early years when we founded the association, was bring people together on events, and we tried to act as a conduit. If people from outside different countries contacted us wanting to learn, we'd obviously share introductions and any sort of information we had. Those were the days pre-AI, so people were picking our brains a lot more. I think now they choose they can go to AI quite easily and find out what's happening in these segments. But it's basically to be a community building hub, and that's how you drive the narrative. So you want people to learn about what's happening, what's possible in prop tech, and you want people to hopefully through that, once they learn more and they see what's possible, then adoption should increase. So you want to drive growth and adoption. So I think having an association or various types of associations, we see this in Europe, in the UK, the US. We see a very healthy association kind of network throughout these countries, and there's global networks that link these all together as well. And it's all, like I say, it's all volunteer driven by people with vested interests, and then that leads to business arrangements, it leads to conferences, it leads to deals being done. All sorts of things can happen from that. So that's the first thing. And we could see, I must say, we could see more of that in our African markets. So Kevin and I, we co-founded PropTech Africa, and before that, my other partner and I co-founded South Africa PropTech. So we've, for various reasons, we've had to step back from sort of day to day and pushing as much as we'd like. So things have quieted down a bit with the associations, which is unfortunate, but it's difficult if you volunteer driven. That's the way it is. But ideally, we'd like to see a lot more of these associations coming out of, Nigeria, Kenya, and there has been some activity, but we need more sort of solid, consistent activity. But it's hard because someone has to pick up the baton and do it. But hopefully we see that coming through. And there are some very good individuals and there are some very good networks that are from prop tech providers, funders, real estate professionals, etc., that are driving the prop tech conversation. So it's not like we don't have that conversation. We lack sort of designated associations to drive it, but it's still happening, and we do have some wonderful communities. So I must stress that. The other thing is accelerators and incubators for our prop techs. So young prop techs, they don't really have anywhere to go. It's difficult because you're competing, especially in Africa, you're competing against fintech, health tech, agri-tech. There's a lot of technology that's growing and spreading at a rapid pace. And obviously, those are really exciting tech ecosystems, and there's some amazing technology solving really important problems in the continent. But there isn't really a home for prop tech. So we need that can come off the back of associations is to have these accelerators for businesses that are up and running and incubators for very early stage businesses that they basically get that support and they get their hand held on that journey. So that would be wonderful to see that happening in partnership with accelerators from other countries. Perhaps, from Europe or the US, if we saw some sort of collaborations happening, that would be quite interesting. Although we could also do it on ourselves. Do it by ourselves. There's definitely the proven track record in all the other tech ecosystems we have in terms of building ventures and building ecosystems. We can definitely do that. Um, and then obviously the third magic ingredient is funding. Everyone wants money and they need money, and it's often that there's not enough going around. So funding is a big one, and like I said again, prop tech it competes with these really big tech ecosystems that have real business cases and are solving real problems, which is great. But if you're a prop tech, it's difficult to get your hand in the pot, per se. There's just a lot of competition. So funding is a big one, and it's a challenge. And for especially any early stage startups in Africa, especially seed funding is very difficult to obtain. But particularly for prop techs, their options are even more limited. So in terms of countries that are getting it right, I mean, talking to funding, South Africa is the only country that has a dedicated prop tech VC fund called Redimension Capital. So that was set up about it must be 2 to 3 years ago now. Redimension Capital came to the front. So they've been investing for now purely in South Africa and purely in residential, purely in real estate technology. So that's a good sign that we have a prop tech VC on the continent. So that's quite encouraging. There are investors in other countries that are sort of industry agnostic investors that have invested in prop tech as well within South Africa and other continents. But so obviously to have a dedicated VC is quite an encouraging development. So I think those are the main ingredients, and it's difficult. There's a lot of when you're talking about tech ecosystems and startups, there's a lot of competition, so it does make it quite difficult. But these are the ingredients. If we saw some of these coming to our main hubs, are South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, and Egypt. So if we saw some more accelerators coming, some more funding, I think we could see a lot more happening out of prop tech.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sean. You have spoken a lot, and also is glad to learn about what you have been doing through your PropTech association. I'll be looking highly forward for you to expand your activities to Nigeria actively. And also, when you talk about the funding challenges, Miss Lusanda is here. She deals in finance, so you can you can actually work with her, to take conversation from there, and see how you can work together. Miss Lusanda, Mr. Sean is also from your country too, South Africa. So I believe after this session, you can relate and see how room for partnership and collaboration, because that is what we stand for. So it's glad to learn what you are doing, the high work you are doing there, Mr. Jones. I will be looking forward to see how we can help you accelerate the impact in this part of the country. Thank you very much. Coming back to you, Miss Anna.
Hello.
You are running the point property management company, as we earlier introduced. So you deal with operational realities of managing properties across borders, UK and Ghana specifically. So which digital tools have genuinely changed how you manage those assets and also client relationship? I know earlier on you talk about how uh, email that facilitate communication between you and your client. So just help us dive in more. And what do you think is still missing in the market now, in line with that we urgently need to be addressed?
Yes, no, I mean that's a very good question. So with us, it's mainly been the sales operation. I still think when it comes to management, you definitely need proximity, as in you need to be quite close to the property. So that's where we work with local companies in Ghana, associates who work with us through training and obviously through technology. We're able to give them direct training on how the best way to manage properties. So the technology side, how it's improved, how we've been able to help our clients is obviously training on the ground with our workforce, but then with the technology side, we've incorporated really basic things. As I said, when it comes to management, the technologies are always there via your mobile phone. If there's an issue, there's been in Ghana, for example, Airbnb is being a very huge explosion in demand because of our tourism, and especially in the last since the government successfully launched Year of Return in 2019. We've seen a huge impact in tourism. So that's really forced the industry to make sure that they're operating at international levels, especially with Airbnb, if I can use that as an example. So if a client or someone arrives and they're at the property and something's not there, picking up their mobile phone and sending a picture or even simply sending a video. These are just the simple day-to-day practicalities that the management team or the maintenance team can see what's missing, and then they can assist the client in real time. And we also have individual systems that we use within our management side. Um, Again, technology will always fall short if the operatives are not performing. So technology doesn't take away our strengths, as even Kevin mentioned. It's really an accelerator for us. So it's an enhancer. So I think anyone listening today, I think we're going to we're moving into a world where the future is there for those who are willing to get the training and understand how tech can enhance whatever they're doing. With property, I think even Kevin mentioned it. I'll just go back to his point because this is something that I do more on a day-to-day with the reports and with the providing the information. We have our industry insight, but then with AI especially, you can put together a report very quickly, tidy it up with our professional knowledge, and you said we can focus more on the human capital with the relationship building. And that's something that's really centralized to sustaining our success as in our, I'm sure, with our prospective businesses and what keeps us ahead. From a management point of view, as I said, it's with our training and with existing technology that's there that's been able to assist us with our clients. Was there a second question you asked me with regards to management, or was it sales?
No, the second part of that question is what is still missing that that you think we urgently need to address?
Yeah. What is still missing? As I said, there's many things that are still missing with regards to, I'd say, overall making ownership, the journey of ownership and management and the lifelong of a property. I'm going to start with the ownership because these are the issues we've had with even just transferring money. Someone buying a property, so based in the UK or in the US, there's still this exorbitant fees of transferring money. So I think that's something cross-border transactions. Obviously now there's digital banking, more fintech has now entered into it. There's faster international transfers, and better tracking. So these are the gaps that have been filled. I think there's still there's in our experience, what we've realized we still encounter is delays. Sometimes we've money's gone into a suspense account because, as you know, before money hits Africa, it needs to go to a European or a US bank, and sometimes it just sits somewhere delayed. We've had issues where money sat in a suspense account for like 6 weeks before it was identified, which is not great. As I mentioned, the fees, and then sometimes you have the regulatory barriers, like just moving money. It really slows down transactions, and which if we can close those barriers with technology, that would be great. I think Africa needs to evolve a bit more with that. Maintenance reporting I've already touched on, and I think the technology is working well with that. It's just the human capital to make sure that we respond very quickly when any faults have been reported with maintenance. And I said, look, when it comes to buying in Africa, as I said, I'm just going to redirect it mainly to Ghana because that's where my experience has been. It will be the centralized property data. Data is still a big issue because it's not being collected accurately or at all. I think there's a lot of isolation points where we need more of a centralized data so everyone can see more clearly what's happening. Inconsistencies with developer transparency. We need more transparency to build trust, and marketing with substance. I think this is where the hype bit comes into. There are so many different things online, social media, and I think sometimes the noise and the hype gets lost. So people have an expectation and there's a reality. So it's really back down to regulation and people, individuals doing their due diligence to engage with professionals. But there's a real opportunity. I think the opportunity is still there. And as I mentioned when I spoke earlier, it's just combining technology with trusted advisory. That would be the biggest accelerator for Africa. And I think there are so many things. I'm sure Sean and Kevin with their prop tech, they're already ahead. Be great to speak to you about that, how we could bring that to Ghana. Improve data transparency, strengthen legality, digitalization. I'd love to see more of that. And obviously, I have a platform, the Ghana Property and Lifestyle Expo, where the diaspora-friendly investment platforms is something that we really push, and we've done that for over a decade and closed many sales in a trusted investment environment. So we need to see more of that. I think Kevin spoke about an event in Nairobi. I hope to be there actually. See, these are the things where conversation happens for professionals, but commercially, we need to have more events where the day-to-day person can benefit from the good work, what's going on the continent. Thank you.
Miss Anna, thank you very much. One of the one of the things you normally say that resonates with me is how you make mention of basic technologies that people actually overlook and how you use them to improve your productivity. Like when you talk about mobile phone, I remember one certain time I was speaking at an event. They were asking me how do we manage our properties across different states in Nigeria, and I was telling them that I use WhatsApp. And everybody burst out burst out like they were trying to think, how can you say you use WhatsApp? So I started explaining to them how I use different WhatsApp groups to bring myself closer to my staffs. And I love the fact when you said management need proximity, and basic infrastructure that we do overlook can give us that proximity. So thank you very much. Before I come to Mr. Kevin, I want you to quickly you talk about you talk about this your program, Lifestyle Expo. So I want you to quickly tell me uh, I know you create the lifestyle expo is a physical event, a speaker space for investment conversation, as you said. So in the era of digital platform and virtual engagement now, so why do you think we still need in-person events? Why do you think so? And what does that tell us about the limit of digital transformation? This question came to me. I was attending African Development Bank Summit last year, and someone asked this question that we do converge physically to discuss why do we still need to be meeting physically? Just quickly before I move to Mr. Kevin.
Absolutely, because it's a basic human response. We want to have that human experience. So going forward, that's going to distinguish what people are going to do when they transact, is what experience did they have initially? Because we can't run away from that word trust. It's still, Africa is happening now, and it's been a taboo for so long. So what we're doing now is bridging that gap. Every single one of us are bridging that gap between the misinformation, trust barrier, and making sure we can convert. And what's happened year in, year out with our events is that relationships are being built, and then technology does the rest. And that's why I'm saying that one cannot exist without the other. But when it's done in that way where the professionals are being met, the technology then is an amplifier. So, okay, I've met you in London at the Ghana Expo. I now want to continue this conversation. Look what we're doing right now. We're having a Zoom in all different continents of the world coming together, speaking on one topic. So you never know. I could meet Kevin in 2 weeks' time, and then we form that actual human experience. And that's the accelerator. So this is why I'm saying that these conversations are so important of how we use the technology. As I said, you perfectly said it. A lot of business gets done on WhatsApp. And I actually learned that through doing business in Ghana, because I was sending emails and no one really responded. And then I sent a WhatsApp and things were done quicker. So I had to learn the culture of what's being responded to. Email or WhatsApp is the same thing. It's technology and the speed of information. So this is not what we're not going to get away from it. Technology will not replace the desire for human experience, but what it will do, it will be an amplifier for everything we're doing in real estate in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to put down that your final antidote. Technology cannot replace the desire for human engagement. It can only amplify it. You are giving us a lot. You also a lot of nuggets. You also said that physical meeting is the traditional starting point, while the technology will act upon it. You gave a perfect response because I know you have experience in physical event management, and I specifically put that question there for you to give response to it, because now people are losing touch of our origin. We need to start meeting first before we use technology to amplify. So thank you very much. So Mr. Kevin, I have kept you for long. Now I'm
That's
back
fine.
again.
That's okay.
Yeah, you are based in Dubai. Based on what I read about you, and Dubai, as we all know, has built one of the world's most digital advanced real estate market. No doubt about that. So what do you think is the most single transferable lesson from that experience that African market could realistically adopt in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Great question. But maybe before I answer that, I'll just add one more thing to what Anna said, which I 100% agree with her, is how you marry the human aspect with technology. And I'll give you an example. Very recently, actually, which happened to me 2 weeks ago, as a board member again of a company where they've got multiple properties. We either do our board meetings online or we do our board meetings in the head office. Until 2 weeks ago, I think, I asked the CEO, I'm going to be in town. I would like to go and see the properties. Just drive me around, do a site visit. And it was eye-opening for me, because by doing that site visits and talking to the property managers and the team, etc., it helped me to have far more information as a board member when next time we're going to have a board meeting. So I 1,000% agree with Anna in terms of you cannot replace the human aspect from the technology. The technology is there to enhance us as humans, basically, going forward. So going back to your original question, which is Dubai. Listen, I think different countries or different continents have got its own challenges and vision, etc. I think for us, I would say on our continent, I firmly believe, and I remember I had a similar question at a conference before, was well before COVID, I think 2019 or 2018, at the property conference, which was in London somewhere anyway, for Africa. And I said, I'm a firm believer that our younger generation will do positive disruption, because for me, it's about leadership, right? Now, if you look at Dubai has leadership at the top, right? Really at the top, right? And that leadership basically cascades all the way down. And obviously everybody, in a way, you sort of not forced to, but by default, when the leader is taking you somewhere in some direction, you embark in that direction, right? In a positive way, right? Now, our continent, obviously, it's not one country. I mean, it's multiple countries. I mean, Nigeria is very different to Ghana and to Cote d'Ivoire, and the regulations and transfer of money. Anna spoke about it, etc. It's got its own issues. I can tell you, for example, somebody a diaspora who wants to buy a property in Senegal from France, a Senegalese, my God, the money goes into 3-4 countries, for example, right? Before it hits the bank account in Senegal, but in Dakar. But anyway, so in that perspective, because let's say, I would say the leadership is in ourselves, basically. I believe if we wake up every day and we say, okay, what is it that we can do to become more efficient? So I know, for example, some of us who are on the call today, or some of the prop techs, have started the journey of capturing data and transforming data. So we've started that journey, but it's in pockets, different places. Somebody has started doing it in Nairobi, somebody in Accra. What my wish is eventually that those people who've start marrying, so that we can have a Pan-African strategy. Because by having that Pan-African strategy, then in global investors and also regional investors can better make decisions. Because for me, there's no reason why we keep on, I'm not saying we should not, we keep on waiting somebody from Korea or Japan or England or France or New York to come and invest in our countries. I would like Nigerians to invest in Nairobi. I would like Kenyans to invest in Accra. Very often these money go into Dubai and whatnot. So for me, how do we do that is how do we capture data? I know it's not easy. We need funding, etc. I think we need to continue to knock the doors, basically, and also open the eyes of our seniors. I mean, I'm probably the most senior on the call. I'm thinking, right, with the gray hair that I've got, etc. But for me, is how do we get the younger generation who are born with technology, understands technology, it's part and parcel of technology, to come in and influence boards of companies in real estate, in these asset class, to understand that you cannot do without technology. So that, I would say, is the leadership in Dubai is at one level. My view is we should take the leadership at ourselves. And listen, I can tell you, when I started my career back in the late 90s, it was very, very, very different. I know we impatient. We want everything to be seamless. We're born with where we want to press a button and have everything in terms of data, making a decision. But gosh, if you were there 20 years ago when we had to do a development, it would take you 2-3 years before you even look at acquiring the land. Just doing the due diligence on the title deeds were taking years, right? So that's progressing. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. I'm confident every year it's going to get better. So let's continue to do that.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Mr. Kevin. In fact, the way you are hitting on the fragmented market section, our next month webinar topic is about fragmented market. It's like you have to come back to share more experience on that, because one of the challenges Miss Anna said was about that fragmentation, moving money across different, and our next month topic is on that fragmented market. I think I'll follow up with you. You have to come back to give us more knowledge in regards to that. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of experience. Then let me move to back again to Mr. Sean. Mr. Sean, this question is also very dear to me. We found out that you operate at the intersection of academia and industry practice, which make you different. So, what do you think that the academic has been talking about or has been telling us about digital technology over the years that we are not listening to? What do you think is that we are not just paying attention to, and what do you think we should do going forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a broad question, and there's no silver bullets when it comes to technology and encouraging adoption and finding that sort of sweet spot. But there's basically, it just comes down to basic principles of making sure something is a good fit. So if you're looking at technology, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, to perhaps adopt, to innovate, to find new ways of doing things. But at the end of the day, whatever technology you're looking at or considering, or any upgrade you're looking at, it needs to solve a specific problem. So it has to have a very real use case, and that should be very clear to the user. And sometimes it's not always easy to determine that. There's a myriad of options. No matter what you're looking at in terms of technology, there's all sorts of options. Whether you're looking for an AI tool, we've got so many from ChatGPT to Claude to all these options. And if you go into enterprise, or if you go into real estate, it gets even more complicated. So I think you have to have a good game plan of how to assess and approach the different options available to you. And sometimes you might need to use a suitable advisor to make sure you're using the right technology, and make sure you've got the right decision making. Because like any other sort of new acquisition or sort of a new undertaking, you need to do your due diligence. So you need to do your due diligence on the options, and obviously start right at the beginning and actually see if you need something to start with. Perhaps the systems you have in place are sufficient. You might not need, a new system or a new technology. So it has to be fit for purpose. It has to be solving a real problem, and it can't just be tech for tech's sake. So it has to really solve a real problem. I think that's the main thing at the end of the day, because there's all these benefits, but people often get burnt because perhaps they rush into decisions, or they don't look at enough options. And then what the academics is saying about the benefits, people start to question that because they're not seeing the results. But perhaps they're making the wrong choices, they're using the wrong products or the wrong services. This can happen. And it's not that they've obviously good products or services in the right context, but it just needs to be right for the context in question. So I think that's mostly it, is it just has to fit the use case in question at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter for me, it doesn't matter what type of technology you're looking at, because there's lots of interesting trends like we've touched on, and how my colleagues have highlighted as well. But if it's not the right fit for what you're looking to do, and it doesn't solve a problem for you, then you can't expect these massive benefits.
I'm trying to take note of that or not yet. It's not about the technology. If it doesn't give you any value, there's no point incorporating it. Thank you very
Exactly.
much, Mr. Sean. Thank you
Exactly.
very much, Miss Anna. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelvin. It was a wonderful learning section, and I learned a lot. So at this point in time, Miss Lucinda, do you want to speak with us for just a minute before we take our questions, if any, and wrap up the day?
No, no, not necessarily. Thank you very much. I was learning like everybody else. It was very interesting conversation. So thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Lusanda. And do we have any question? Anybody with any question? For those of you that join us, if you are watching us from Facebook or YouTube, you can type your question on the comment section so that I can read it out. If there is none, we have been having the conversation for the past 1 hour, almost 1 hour, 30 minutes, and our speakers have actually give us a lot. Anyone with any question, drop in comments in the comment box so that we can handle it. Okay, in the absence of any question, we just had a wonderful conversation, and these three amazing people made it worth listening to. Thank you very much, Mr. Sean. Thank you very much, Miss Anna, and Mr. Kevin in absentia. He said he has to catch up with something. Thank you very much for sharing your wealth of experience with us, not just for your time alone, but the quality of the thinking you brought to this platform today. This platform exists just for this. People with experience, people that are seeing it, come here to share their experience so that others can use it to better their businesses and also impact the industry. If there is anything that stood out for me today, I would just said from the conversations, digital technology in Africa is not about the future anymore. It's happening now. And the most important thing is how we are going to leverage both the basic ones and the complex ones, how we are going to leverage them to ensure that we scale our businesses and create the impacts that are needed. So our speakers today has given us enough from their wealth of experience, and I can speak to the honesty in being vulnerable in sharing what they are building with us. Mr. Kevin said the other time that in Africa, we are scared of sharing information because of competition, but we cannot grow and improve if we can't speak to ourselves. And thank you all very much for your honesty and vulnerability. So to our audience across Africa and beyond, anywhere you are listening from, thank you for showing up and thank you for investing this your time in bettering yourself and also in contributing to the real estate industry at large. So the platform is built on the belief that better conversations lead to better decisions, and better decisions will build the Africa that we all desire. Our next edition will be coming up on 28th of May, yeah, and we'll be talking about fragmented market, shared shared future. So where we are going to look at how African real estate system must align across border, especially people that are already practicing across different African countries. Let's see how we can create that seamless transaction across border. So thank you very much. I hope to see most of us again on that. At this point in time, Halima, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, our host, AS Yunusa, and I would sincerely like to appreciate Ms. Anna and Mr. Sean and Mr. Kevin for such an insightful session. Sharing your perspectives on this theme was very, very valuable. To our audience for attending and participating, thank you also for your time. We look forward to having you join us in future sessions as we continue to share knowledge, drive conversations, and share the future of real estate in Africa. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Hope to see you all again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sean.
Goodbye,
I'm
everyone.
going to thank you, Miss Anna. I'm going to personally reach out to you after these conversations.
Wonderful.
Just like as Miss Anna said,
Excellent.
the technology will amplify the relationship going forward. Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
care.
Thank
Bye,
you, Ms.
everybody.
Sandra, for attending too. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ms.
You're
Seema.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sean, too. Great to hear from you.
Thank you, Anna.